Good morning. Welcome to our first episode of the Vitalacy Patient Safety webinar series. Today we are hosting Brandon from UofL Health, but before we get going, let's start with a quick disclaimer. The views, opinions, and statements made during this webinar are solely those of the individual presenters and don't necessarily reflect the views, opinions, or policies of either Vitalacy or UofL Health. Information provided in this webinar is for educational purposes only and should not be considered as professional advice or endorsement by either Vitalacy or UofL Health. Now, with that out of the way, I'd like to quickly introduce our presenter today. Joining us is Brandon from the Infection Prevention team at UofL Health. Brandon, welcome. Do you want to give everyone a quick overview and maybe some of your background and experiences?
It's a pleasure to be here. I am a member of the Infection Prevention team here at UofL Health in Louisville, Kentucky. I have been working closely with Vitalacy for nearly 3 years now. At UofL Health, my main responsibilities are focusing on infection prevention as it relates to disinfection and sterilization of our medical equipment, instruments, and the environment. My role also has included oversight of electronic hand hygiene monitoring in 7 different facilities across our health system. Over the years, I have immersed myself in the ins and outs of hand hygiene, infection prevention, and most recently, utilizing the Vitalacy platform. My experience has spanned both as a user, infection preventionist, and bedside care provider, and that has helped give me a comprehensive understanding of both the challenges and opportunities of utilizing electronic hand hygiene monitoring. My knowledge and experience spans workflows, technology solutions, and creating change within the organization. So my experience utilizing the Vitalacy system over the past 3 years has taught me a lot about electronic hand hygiene monitoring systems. So let's take a little deeper dive into just what an electronic hand hygiene monitoring system is. An electronic hand hygiene monitoring system is a cutting edge blend of technology and healthcare best practices that is designed to enhance infection control and ensure high compliance with hand hygiene protocols. It's like having a high-tech sidekick in the fight against infection, using a mix of wearable devices, dispenser sensors, and location beacons to monitor and encourage proper hand hygiene amongst healthcare workers. These wearables are smart enough to detect hand washing movements, while dispenser sensors keep tabs on soap and sanitizer use. Meanwhile, beacons and sensors throughout the facility help ensure that hand hygiene practices are being followed where and when it matters most. The heart of any electronic hand hygiene monitoring system, though, lies in its data analytics platform, which acts as like the command center processing all the data collected to provide real-time insights and feedback. This is like where the magic happens. It takes that raw data that it has collected from your facility and turns it into actionable intelligence. It allows healthcare facilities to really identify patterns, track compliance rates, and pinpoint areas that need improvement. The real beauty of this system, however, is in the real-time feedback mechanisms that they can provide staff. So imagine you're carrying an armful of supplies into a room, and then the patient asks you for something, and you're doing a million things. Rather than potentially missing that hand hygiene opportunity, you get a gentle reminder to perform hand hygiene at just the right time. It's this type of immediate feedback that is crucial for fostering a culture of continuous improvement and accountability among staff. And really what sets electronic hand hygiene monitoring apart even more is not just the technological prowess, but their impact on healthcare practices. It offers a seamless, efficient solution to the constant challenge of maintaining strict hand hygiene that is crucial for patient safety. So by providing that 24/7 monitoring and real-time feedback, these systems eliminate some of the biases and limitations that manual observations present and ensure a comprehensive approach to infection prevention. In essence, electronic hand hygiene monitoring systems represent a significant leap forward in healthcare's ongoing mission to provide safer, more reliable patient care. They're about more than just compliance. They're about transforming hand hygiene practices into data-driven and making them an integral part of healthcare workers' daily routines, ultimately leading to a safer environment for both patients and staff. Now let's look at a few ways that you can help drive change with a hand hygiene monitoring system. So In the quest to enhance patient safety and infection control, an electronic hand hygiene monitoring system emerges as your pivotal ally. Here are some ways that you can leverage its potential to drive meaningful change within your healthcare setting. And we'll kind of cover on many of these topics more in depth throughout the presentation. One of those is a commitment to the system. So success with an electronic hand hygiene monitoring system starts with a strong commitment from all levels of the organization. That leadership, your leadership must champion the system, emphasizing its role in safeguarding patient health and enhancing the quality of care. By integrating that system into your facility's core safety protocols or goals and making it really a staple of daily routine for your staff, that staff then starts to develop a recognition for the value of the system and begins to more closely adhere to hand hygiene guidelines. This commitment also involves allocating the necessary resources and support to ensure the system's smooth operation and maximum impact. The next step and the next way to really drive change with this system is with participation and communication. So being engaged and having clear communication are crucial. Encouraging active participation by involving staff in the system's implementation process, from the selection all the way through to the rollout. Having open communication channels and allowing for the sharing of feedback, addressing concerns, and celebrating your successes. Regular training sessions and updates can keep all team members informed and competent in using the system effectively. This inclusive approach helps foster a sense of ownership and accountability among staff and allows them to be key drivers for embracing the change. Another important way to drive change with a hand hygiene system is to define and measure your goals. So setting clear and achievable goals is essential for tracking progress and maintaining focus. With the electronic system, establish specific, measurable, and attainable objectives for hand hygiene compliance rates, reduction in infection, and other relevant metrics. Use the system's data analytics capabilities to monitor these goals over time and enable you to identify trends, make informed decisions, and adjust strategies as needed. And one of those key things and key aspects of this is then celebrating milestones to motivate staff and reinforce the importance of continuous improvement. Going forward, you always have to have, or you have that dynamic data reporting. So one of the strengths of an electronic hand hygiene monitoring system is its ability to provide that dynamic real-time data reporting. So utilizing this feature to help generate detailed reports that offer insight into compliance rates, identifying areas for improvement, and tracking the effectiveness of the interventions that you've made. Sharing these reports with staff can highlight the direct impact of their actions on patient safety and help create that data-driven culture that values evidence-based practices. Moreover, dynamic reporting can guide targeted training and education efforts, ensuring that they are as effective as possible. The last thing that you can do is having a strong vendor relationship. So that collaborative relationship with your hand hygiene systems vendor is a key aspect of this. Choosing a vendor that not only offers a robust and user-friendly system, but provides excellent ongoing support and training. A vendor that listens to feedback and continuously improves its offerings can be a valuable partner in your infection control efforts. Regular meetings with the vendor can help you stay updated on new features, best practices, and strategies to maximize the system's benefits. And this partnership can also facilitate customization of the system to fit your facility's unique needs, ensuring that you get the most out of your investment. By focusing on these 5 areas, healthcare facilities can really harness the power of electronic hand hygiene monitoring systems and foster that culture of safety, accountability, and continuous improvement. This strategic approach not only enhances hand hygiene compliance, but it also sets the stage for lasting change, ultimately leading to better patient outcomes and a safer healthcare environment.
Brandon, that's a lot of information. Is there one of the 5 that you found more valuable, or you think that folks that are looking to implement an electronic hand hygiene system might benefit most from when they're looking at vendors and looking at standing up a program?
I think the one that sticks out the most to me in all of my experience is committing to the system. So if you don't have that commitment from both your infection prevention team, from your healthcare like facility administration, and from your staff, and have that buy-in, if that commitment is not there, then the rest of these ways to drive change don't really exist. So let's look at a couple ways that are a couple of the reasons that a healthcare system should kind of look for this technology. And then what do you stand to gain by implementing that? The adoption of electronic hand hygiene monitoring in healthcare facilities can be transformative. Beyond the obvious benefits of accurate near real-time compliance tracking, healthcare facilities gain a strategic advantage in their overarching goal of enhancing patient safety. Electronic hand hygiene monitoring provides them with the ability, like we said, to pinpoint specific areas of improvement, to implement targeted interventions and teaching moments, and to measure the impact of those interventions over time. This is unmatched when it comes to traditional manual hand hygiene observations. It's not just about meeting leapfrog and regulatory requirements. It's also about fostering a culture of hand hygiene and continuous improvement through teaching moments and feedback, ultimately all leading to a safer patient care environment. Traditionally, hand hygiene can fall to the back burner as manual observation creates a small sample size of biased data when staff know that they're being observed. You get that Hawthorne effect. It can also create a false sense of success when it comes to hand hygiene compliance, as the individual performing the audits tends to only observe individuals they likely know will perform well. An electronic system gives you an opportunity to monitor exponentially more opportunities while removing that Hawthorne effect. And then you can use that data to empower change and awareness. As an infection preventionist, this technology allows you to shift your focus and now be able to drive areas of change and improvement for staff, which at the end of the day, not only impact patient satisfaction, but patient safety.
So, Brandon, would you say that electronic hand hygiene monitoring should be a staple in every infection prevention team's toolkit?
Absolutely. I think that it is something that as we move forward and as the technology continues to advance, it becomes something that rather than being a optional addition to your infection prevention toolkit, it almost becomes an essential element of that toolkit. And it really allows you to have that extra set of eyes throughout the facility that you can't there's no way that you can physically have from a manual standpoint. So it will become, I think the future will see that shift towards this becoming the norm rather than the exception. So let's take a quick look at why electronic monitoring is so beneficial for all types of care providers, and is there a market for such a product in other care settings? I can tell you that infections are universal. They span the boundaries of any care setting. And the goal of electronic hand hygiene monitoring is to improve compliance and prevent the spread of those infections. Data driven insights provided by the electronic system give you the ability to drive change among care providers and then standardize your hand hygiene practices across all types of providers and settings. And this helps ensure that everyone is following the same high standards regardless of where they are. So while acute care settings such as hospitals naturally draw the attention, the need for meticulous hand hygiene practices is prevalent in all care settings, whether you're in post acute or ambulatory, whether you're in cancer centers or memory care facilities. And even amongst your acute care settings, you have to think of whether you're talking about an emergency department, whether you're talking about your pre op and PACU areas, whether you're talking about an intensive care unit. It really meets all aspects. What I like, or one of the things that I really like the most about the Vitalacy platform, is that it is versatile and adaptable to the specific demands of each setting. In post-acute care, for instance, patients have much longer extended stays in a lot of cases, but that risk of infection remains the same. And that in a lot of instances can make electronic monitoring equally relevant, or if not more relevant, because of the amount of times that providers may be entering that room over the length of that patient's stay. The platform's flexibility ensures that it can cater to any site of care. And again, whether those are your semi-private rooms, your bays, or open areas where treatment may be given. So now let's look at how we utilize hand hygiene reporting systems to drive change, and if there's any specific feature that we find particularly useful. Our infection prevention team uses the reporting system to monitor compliance and provide coaching and guidance when needed. In addition, Vitalacy regularly pushes out new product updates that provide us with additional tools for managing our workforce and for improving our infection prevention strategies. Some of the things I use most from the platform are performance reports. These are, they serve as our compass in navigating the journey of improvement. So these reports go beyond just numbers. They provide actionable insights into the effectiveness of the interventions that we make, because we can actually query specific date ranges or time periods and see the immediate results of our effort. By closely monitoring processes through the performance reports, we can discern what's working well and where adjustments are needed. The performance reports give us the flexibility to adjust the compliance data based on the performance of staff from a specific department. So we could choose just a specific ICU, or we can like the staff of that specific ICU, or we can choose it based on what's physically occurring there. So we may want to see what is occurring on the 6th floor ICU by their staff, or we may want to see what is physically occurring in the 6th floor ICU by any staff member that is visiting that location. So performance reports also give us a deep dive into data that includes information such as hand hygiene events by type, so whether it's room entry versus room exit, as well as hand hygiene by wash type, so whether we're looking at an alcohol-based hand rub or soap. So this information gives us just an extra hand in refining strategies and ensuring that our efforts align with the overarching goals of improving hand hygiene compliance. And the role of the performance report is not just retrospective; they're forward-looking and helping shape that path towards sustained progress. So another tool that we commonly use is staff rounding. It is an essential tool for us to help identify staff that have entered a room. When conducting contact tracing to determine who has been in isolation rooms, for example, this can be an essential tool for us. Staff rounding provides you with a wealth of information, and you can sort by users or by location. So again, I can sort by where a specific RN or PCA, what rooms they went into, and I can even sort by which staff went into a specific patient room. This gives me the ability to see how many staff members visited a room, how many total times a room was visited, and you can even deep dive in and see the exact date and time and duration that a staff member was in a room. Another report that has been extremely beneficial for us is the dispenser activity report. We routinely use that tool as it allows us to look at the activity of each dispenser in a department, both soap and sanitizer. You can sort this information in several ways, including by dispense count and by last dispense. And this report can be very beneficial when viewing a department to ensure you have adequate coverage of your hand hygiene dispensers. It can also help when checking hand hygiene compliance related to patients in isolation. A great example of this is when looking at patients that have C. diff and are in contact enteric precautions that require the use of soap. You can immediately look at the area within or surrounding that patient room and see the use of those dispensers. So the nice benefit of this as well is that you can view that data in a list format, as you see, or you can view it in a map format.
Yeah, Brandon, one of the themes I'm hearing you say is that data is power when it comes to providing coaching and providing that overall change and engagement with staff. What advice would you have for facilities or networks that want to restrict some of that data from staff or anonymize data or maybe not provide that full picture of data to their staff and maybe limit some of that sharing of data? Do you have any advice for those folks on how that could impact their overall ability to drive change and their ability to see ROI from an electronic hand hygiene system?
What I can tell you from my experience, both as an end user and now kind of on the more administrative side as an infection preventionist, is that you you really want staff to see that data to drive that change. The more that they have access to, the more that they see, that's just kind of another tool for you in helping shape that change and direct them to where you need them to be from a hand hygiene compliance standpoint. You'll have a lot of staff that I feel like routinely believe that they are performing high levels of hand hygiene, and it's not that they are intentionally not performing hand hygiene or that their compliance is lower than they believe. It's just the kind of the nature and the rigors of healthcare is you're doing 100 things at once all the time. And so having an electronic system that can help point out opportunities that may have been missed, or helping you kind of see some of that workflow and stuff, those can become extremely beneficial for you in allowing staff to see opportunities that they can grow, and in educating them in opportunities of where that was missed.
And do you think there's sometimes that aha moment of maybe our hand hygiene isn't as strong as we thought it was, or maybe folks first see their compliance scores and first see their data? Is there ever sort of that, oh wow, we're maybe not as good as we thought we were? Or I think it could lead to a lot of thoughts, right? But that's probably the initial one, right? Is like, oh, maybe it isn't as good. Maybe that Hawthorne effect is more relevant than we thought it was, or there is more bias in some of those manual observations. Do you think that comes pretty often as well?
Absolutely. I think it's kind of twofold. I think that when you initially see the numbers the first time that you have had an electronic monitoring system on for a period of time, 24/7, on a vast number of staff, that you either get that aha moment of, oh, it's not as good as it, or you get that, oh, that's not real, that can't be real. And it's twofold there, and I can see both sides of it, because a lot of times when you're doing manual observations, you're only seeing what you want to see, and that's the reality of it. And you have that Hawthorne effect in like ongoing. So staff know that you're watching them. They see you outside the door performing audits, so they're going to perform hand hygiene in most cases, to where when they're wearing a device for electronic monitoring, yeah, I think the first probably 15 or 20 minutes of the day, depending on what's going on, that device is there and they're very like present. Hey, I'm wearing this. But as the day goes on, that kind of goes away, and you start to see that natural behavior, kind of that natural workflow. And like I said, it's not that staff are kind of intentionally not performing hand hygiene. It's just that they have very busy roles. And a lot of times that's the thing that when you go into a room, the patient immediately asks you for something, and you want to help that patient. And so you start doing that. And once you're past that hand hygiene dispenser, it's kind of out of sight, out of mind. So having that, the ability to have reminders and things that kind of get you back to where, hey, don't forget hand hygiene, those can be extremely beneficial. And I think staff see that. Like when you start kind of a trial per se of an electronic system, and you're getting your baseline data and stuff, and then the moment you turn on those reminders, you can see a difference in staff performance just from that. So there's definitely a lot of learning opportunities that exist with it, and you definitely have a lot of those aha moments. Some of them is staff are like, no, no, that's not true. That can't be what my number is. But I think as they go through and are able to look at some of the workflow data that the systems present and stuff, you really can begin fostering some change. So now let's take a quick look at how organizations can use data reporting to encourage that culture of continuous improvement by gathering some user feedback and suggestions. The platform, an electronic hand hygiene monitoring platform, allows staff to see their own data, which, as I said, is a huge step in developing that culture of continuous improvement. Staff have to understand and have to trust the data. So that's a big part of that buy-in that we talked about earlier. It also allows staff to have the ability, with Vitalacy, for example, to chat directly with the support team and address any concerns they may have with the system. So it may be that I tried to check out a badge this morning and wasn't able to. The system didn't allow me to. It may be that the sensor is missing out of one of these dispensers. There are a number of items that it may be in that specific instance, but it gives staff the ability to kind of drive the program and address concerns. It may be that every time I walk into room 312, the system vibrates at me whether I perform hand hygiene or not. And it allows, again, it allows staff to feel like they are part of it. It allows the Vitalacy team in this instance to have targeted like interventions to correct known issues. Because again, if you don't know a problem exists, you can't fix it. And then 6 months down the road, everybody says, well, room 312 hasn't worked for 6 months. And everybody, well, did anyone know that room 312 didn't work for 6 months? So I think putting those the kind of that key in the hand of your users is a very important aspect there. The Vitalacy platform, for example, provides management with the ability to dive deep into that data, and some of those aspects we've talked about already, to really determine when and where opportunities may have been missed and relay that information to staff. And then having an on-site support team has been incredibly helpful to us in situations where there are questions related to compliance, and helping identify and address those concerns, and being part of the team to help staff improve that compliance. And I give a great example that happened here was our respiratory therapist. The way their workflow presented, there were some challenges initially with integrating the system into their workflow, because they would traditionally go into the patient's room, kind of introduce themselves, see what they needed, move back out to their workstation on wheels, get any equipment or supplies or anything that they need, and then go back into the patient room. And they were telling us initially that they couldn't understand why the system kept giving them constant reminders. They had sanitized before they went into the room, but it was the fact that with an in and out system, with a location based system, when they left that room and went back out to get the equipment or supplies on their carts out in the hallway, they were triggering an exit. The system believed that they were exiting the patient room just as if they were going down the hallway to visit the next patient. It did not understand initially that they were coming out, grabbing a non-rebreather mask off of their cart, and then going right back into the patient room to give that mask to that patient. So we were able to kind of work with the support team and the on-site team to watch some of those workflows and provide firsthand feedback and everything to those staff members. And I can tell you, when the staff know that you're taking the time to really watch their workflow, understand what they're doing, and what is or isn't working and why, that makes a big difference between getting staff buy-in. And I feel like from the earliest moments here, that the respiratory therapy department, once we got past that and we're able to say, hey, here's why this is occurring, here are some solutions that we can present to help make this work with your workflow, they became very big adopters of the system and really helped us drive it throughout our facilities. And so those are just some like little opportunities that doing a small thing made a big difference for us in the long term. So let's talk about what our relationship has been like with the Vitality support team that I just discussed, and what are some ways that vendors can support organizations like UofL Health. This is a huge question, and I can't give enough kind of kudos to the Vitality support team. They have been incredibly helpful to our organization as far as helping us push to drive change. I feel like both sides have learned a lot in our partnership, but as I said in the last question, they've been an integral part of helping us in situations where there may have been questions related to compliance, and understanding some of those times where even we were kind of banging our head on the wall, being like, why is this not working? What is going on? What is wrong? And I think vice versa. I think, as I said earlier, it has to that partnership has to be a kind of a two-way street. And I think there have been times where we have helped them, saying, hey, this is what the workflow in a healthcare facility of our size and our type is like. Let's take your system that already works, and let's make it work even better for us. And so, like, here we are supported by two permanent on-site client reps who have really helped us dial in the system and learn that system. They perform routine maintenance to ensure that the data is accurate and clean. And I feel like our staff feel very engaged with these reps and are willing to share kind of concerns related to the system. And those concerns are met with a timely response that reassures staff and helps get that staff buy-in and confidence of the program. I'll give a great example of that. Two instances, one where we were educating staff on a new staff member on the system and how to utilize it, and we went and we checked out a badge and we walked over to the first dispenser, and the on-site rep was right there on the same department with us, and we dispensed to the dispenser to show the staff how the system works. And that dispenser, was missing a sensor. So it did not trigger the proper response on the badge. And so immediately, the staff member obviously becomes a little bit apprehensive of the system. Does this work? How does this work? So we walked over and we showed that staff member on another dispenser. It worked exactly as it should. And we notified the on-site rep. And within 30 minutes or less, the on-site rep already had a new dispenser sensor in that initial dispenser. And we were able to take that staff member right back over to that dispenser, let that staff member see that that was working. And they understood that if those concerns are brought forward and addressed, that they will be promptly dealt with by the on-site reps. And I think that really helped us get some buy-in with that specific staff member. Another great example of this was we were rounding with the support team one day on the units, and we went in and asked staff like, hey, how is the system going? What's working for you? What's not? And we had this one specific staff member. She was actually sitting in the break room eating lunch, and she stopped her lunch and she said, "Let me show you what doesn't work." And we were like, "Okay, let's see what doesn't work." And so she went and she checked out her badge and she walked us into to a room across the hall to show us exactly what did not work for her. And it worked perfectly, just as the system should. And we explained to her that we were aware that there had been some issues in some of those locations. We had made some adjustments and made some updates to the system based on feedback we had received. And she was able to see instantly that those adjustments and that feedback had made a difference. And the system was working exactly as it should have at that point. And that kind of immediately allowed us to get that buy-in and that confidence of that staff member. And she was like, "Okay, I'll wear the system. I'll wear the badge every day now." So those are just a couple of the instances where having that on-site support team and being able to kind of immediately address concerns or explain the changes that have been made really helped push the program forward. And on the rare occasion when an issue arises that's kind of beyond what the on-site client reps can address, they do a great job of escalating to the national team. And they are great at both levels of staying in communication with our organization and addressing issues in a timely manner.
It sounds like one of the important things is creating that communication, right, between users that are being monitored with the system and then some of your program leads in infection prevention. Was there any tools or means other than walking around and asking staff problems they were running into? For example, a shared email that folks could send questions or concerns to, or maybe different meetings or forums where folks could bring those forward. Did you find any communication channels like that that seemed to be helpful as well, or do you think that sort of boots on the ground is the most effective means of bringing to light any sort of issues folks might be running into?
No, I think that both aspects are important because there's certainly going to be times where that on-site rep or even our infection prevention team are not going to be on site for those staff members that are having some kind of issue. So there are a couple opportunities. Specifically with the Vitalacy system, there was a dedicated email that was developed that went that our staff had access to that went directly to the Vitalacy support team that allowed them to get a response and feedback from them. There was also chat boxes at all of our like checkout stations for their badges that staff could go right up to the iPad and chat directly with a rep from the support team at Vitalacy. And then I think they knew that when they saw, like I said before, I think they knew when they saw the Vitalacy reps on site that that was an open set of ears that staff did not, I don't think they ever felt like intimidated or anything to go to them and say, "Hey, this is or isn't working." That was an important aspect. And then we had a number of work groups kind of throughout our process. And I think those work groups really were beneficial as far as bringing forth things, issues, and examples of items like our workflow problem for respiratory therapy, bringing those forth and educating our leadership within the facility as far as examples of that we were seeing, because there were other departments that similar workflow issues existed that we were then able to kind of target and make changes as necessary for them as well. If we didn't have that communication or didn't have a number of people involved in those aspects, some of that would have never happened. So, do I have any advice when it comes to working with the support team? I do. I think I've said it 2 or 3 times already. That strong partnership with the support team has to be a two-way street. I think there are going to be times where we're going to say, here's something that's happening at our facility that we need you to help us find a solution for. And there's going to be times where the support team has said, hey, this is happening in your facility. We need you to help us figure out what's going on. A great example of that early on for us here was we had a lot of the badges that we use for the reminder system. We had a lot of those badges that were disappearing, that were going out the door, going home with individuals at the end of the day. And we kind of were brainstorming, what do we do? They're not cheap. So how do we quit losing dollars? It was like we were just flushing money down the drain at first. And so we said, we sat down and talked to the support team, and they said, we could take the same beacons, the same like room or exit beacons that we have in our hallways and in our patient rooms, and we could put one of those near the exits of the building. And we said, okay, that vibration might be good, but staff aren't going to turn around and walk all the way back to their unit. That is not going to happen. If they're leaving the door to go home, they're going home. So then we were able to kind of say, okay, if you can make this vibrate 5 seconds or so before they get to the door, we can work on getting a drop box and placing a drop box at the locations at all the exits to the building, so that as staff were leaving the building, if they had not returned that badge at the end of their shift, they got that vibration right as they were getting ready to exit the door. And right in front of them we had a Vitalacy sticker on them, so staff was very aware of what those were for. Was a drop box that looked essentially like a little mailbox, a little one-way mailbox that they could put their badge in, and that allowed us to drastically increase or decrease the amount of badges that were leaving the facility, and drastically increase staff usage, because when the badges were consistently leaving, there were some units and departments that did not have badges available for staff to use. Another piece of advice I would say is to actively participate in training sessions, being sure to share focus areas from both a workflow and system perspective. Again, you live in your facility as much as the support teams are there. That's kind of your home. That's your space, and you know exactly what happens there. So being able to share that and make sure that they are aware of that. And then don't be hesitant to ask questions from the vendor's team, and continue asking until you get an answer. It's not something that it may not be something that they have ever seen before. It may be like a new situation based on workflow or something. So continue pushing, and don't hesitate to ask those questions. Be willing to immerse yourself in the system and understand how it works. You're going to get a lot of questions from staff, or staff are going to say a lot of times that the system doesn't work. And the issue is not necessarily in most cases that the system doesn't work. The system is working exactly as it's intended. It may just have been a lack of education to staff as far as what the system's supposed to do. And if you have not immersed yourself in that enough to understand that, then you're going to be bringing forth a lot of issues that could be very simple fixes and quick education, and have staff buy-in. One example of this in particular is when you look at one room or patient care area that has lower hand hygiene compliance compared to a similar area. It may be something as simple as looking at the location of your dispensers, or ensuring that a dispenser sensor did not go missing. Maybe they had to replace that dispenser because that specific dispenser was not working, and the dispenser sensor was thrown away with the old dispenser. And so all of a sudden you're not getting any data coming out of room 312, and you can't figure out why you're not getting data out of 312. And if you understand that system and you work with that support team, it can be a very quick fix, and all of a sudden you're getting data exactly as you should. We routinely work with both that on-site and national support team to determine root causes, just like the example I described earlier with respiratory therapy. Oftentimes, like I said, the solution can be as simple as changing the location of a dispenser or a beacon. But the single biggest piece of advice that I have for anyone when it comes to an electronic hand hygiene system is to always be an advocate for your frontline staff. In order for them to use the system, they have to trust the system. And so you have to ensure that their concerns are heard and are addressed. And like I said, that could be something as simple as you educating them on why something is or isn't happening. But in other instances, it may be that there is some actual concern there as far as how the system is operating, and ensuring that those are addressed goes a long ways towards building that connection both between yourself and that employee, and between that employee and the system, and making them trust it and want to use that system moving forward. Another thing that I personally want to touch on has been the importance of having clear user guides and support resources available for our staff. Communication, as I've said, is a key in this entire process, and it's going to be essential to the success of any electronic hand hygiene monitoring program or system. And that goes all the way from the first moments when you are looking at what system you are interested in using, all the way through the implementation of your system, and key updates that occur, and all of that. Failure to communicate the expectations and goals of your hand hygiene program will result in almost immediate failure of your monitoring system. If staff are not aware of the expectations of the system, if they don't understand the system as far as what the vibrations or reminders mean, if they don't understand how the system works, the system will not succeed. So having that open communication, having education, and providing that and having it readily available for staff is huge. Great examples of these are some of them that you see on your screen here. Just support documents, strategic plans for all your stakeholders, ensuring that your C-suite and nursing leadership and department leaders and all of that understand exactly what's going on, and giving them resources to help their staff. That's a key aspect and key component for widespread acceptance of the system and getting that staff buy-in.
All right, so Brandon, if I were to summarize some of the themes I heard today, I think there's three that stood out to me. So the first one is commitment to the system, learning how it works, immersing yourself in the data, understanding some of the tools available to you from an infection prevention perspective. Maybe a second one is communication with staff. So having those clear forums to provide coaching and to provide leadership and instruction and how-tos and all the questions that come with that, right? Is sort of having that clear communication on how the system works, what we're trying to achieve, all those things. Then maybe a third one is partnership with a vendor so that you can dial in a system and learn some best practices and fully utilize the different aspects of a program. Is there anything else or any final words you'd have to leave folks with as they're hearing this webinar?
No, I think that it all goes back to three of those key aspects that you just talked about, that communication and relationship, go right back to the 5 ways to drive change with a hand hygiene system that we talked about in the very beginning. Those were three of those boxes that you saw right there on the screen, that this is the way that you make a change. I think if you have that commitment and can get that commitment with your staff, if you have that communication, and that communication is between you and your staff, between your administration and your staff, and between your staff and your vendor, which leads right into the relationship both that you and your staff have with that vendor. If you can get all three of those key pieces in place, you can have a very, very, very successful electronic hand hygiene system, and it can help drive very, very big change within your organization.
We appreciate you being on with us today, Brandon, and thank you for the folks at home that made it through the conversation as well. And we'll see you on the next episode of the Vitalacy Patient Safety webinar series.